This tiny village was terrorized by an ancient legend. And we're going to dive into this and just see how accurate this story is, which, I honestly have no reason to doubt, um, especially if it made it on, BBC and it's out there. That means there's got to be some truth to it. When you hear these stories, whether it's about skinwalkers or vampires or werewolves, and you hear so much different stories that last generation after generation. Sure, there's stuff that's exaggerated. Sure, there's stuff that's just completely made up. But somewhere in all that, there's a little bit of truth. So with that being said, we're smoking all my dragons, divine righteous almighty greats overachieving, never slacking. And we about to get into this. Here we go. Original link will be in the description.
Old Shuck? Yes, I see him, I should say, about 30 years ago. What a wonderful night it was, I always remember. The moon was at its fullest. In fact, I'd never seen such a beautiful night. And as I was pushing the old bike, I heard these rattling of these chains. And I thought to myself, oh, well, that's nothing, that's just a matter of a horse strap.
So immediately they got the whole full moon going here. It goes with the whole mythology. Everything's adding up. I want to burst out laughing because for y'all that heard me tell a story before about me on my bike getting chased by a dog in the country, that's what it's reminding me of already.
I've seen such a beautiful night. And as I was pushing the old bike, I heard these rattling of these chains. And I thought to myself, oh, well, that's nothing, that's just a matter of a horse straying off the marshes. That kept coming nearer and nearer.
Local people still talk about the black dog, and there are very regularly eyewitness reports cropping up.
And I thought to myself, well, I'd better stop here and let it pass. And it was past me as a form as a great big black shaggy dog. And do you know what? There was a gate dead opposite, and that passed through this gate. Well, when I got to the gate, that never had been opened.
It's not just a fusty old legend dating back to the 16th century.
This tale begins in
Let me know. Y'all heard about this? Let me know in the comments.
1577, and deep in the heart of eastern England, a hellish monster appeared one day outside Blythburgh Church amidst the mightiest of storms. Closer and closer it got to the door, while a large congregation sat pensively inside. With a huge clap of thunder, the church doors burst open, and the ghostly black dog made its deadly entrance. Crashing through the building, this hound from hell sent parishioners scattering, killing two, and toppling the steeple through the church roof. The dog's parting gift were scorched claw marks in the church door, and they remain to this day.
What is it about black dogs? Why not dogs of any other colour, and why dogs in particular? Black is, of course, a colour of ill omen, and it is associated with death. So that has something to do with it, I think. But dogs are also such interesting animals from the point of view of their relationship with humans and their kind of role in human symbology. The dog is our closest friend. We domesticated it 15,000 years ago, and we rely on it for help, for protection, for keeping us company. But at the same time, if you call someone a dog, that's very insulting. A dog can turn on you and bite you.
The black dog story has become a very popular legend and narrative here that's almost certainly been passed down by word of mouth. I quite often give lectures to educational groups and to the local school, and a few years ago I had a group from primary school here. These were 6 or 7-year-olds, and at the end, because they were very quiet and looked rather frightened, I said, well, it all happened a long time ago, and I don't suppose the black dog is ever around now. And at that point, a little girl stuck up her hand and said, please, sir, he is, sir, my granny's seen him. And then a boy stuck up his hand and said, yes, my brother's seen him too, sir. So for them, it is something very realistic because they've heard about it from their own people within their own community.
So I said to the villagers the next night when I got there, the whole story, and they said, well, that's nothing. That's what they call Old Shuck. He roamed these roads pretty frequently. He's been seen many a time. But I said I'd never see anything like that before.
These stories tend to take a very similar form across the world, stories.
So you can't tell me everybody's crazy at that point. Us as humans, we're always gonna get real logical. We always gotta find something. Right? There's this show called Evil on it's on Netflix, but then you gotta watch. I think like season 4 you gotta watch on YouTube, but it's basically about this priest and this very logical brainiac woman who they team up, and they're dealing with paranormal stuff, and her whole thing, and they have another friend with them. Their whole thing is to find evidence of how this stuff is fake. But you start to see how spirit influences things in a material plane to where, yeah, it may seem like a logical explanation, but it's still being influenced by spirit. Go check that show out.
Of creatures which herald the fact that somebody is going to die quite shortly, or that some disaster is going to strike the community. But you can slot in different animals into that global story depending on what local belief ascribes to those creatures.
The logical explanation would be that it was just a thunderstorm of very dire consequences. It certainly was one of the worst storms that has ever been recorded. There's probably never been anything like it in our area before. But because people at that time were very superstitious, they tended to think that anything that happened that was good came from God, and anything that was rather worse came from Satan.
In Britain, they do tend to be dogs, but they're not always dogs. For example, in Denmark, the kind of black dog that we have in Britain, which guards churchyards and prowls around them to keep out and keep in spirits of various sorts. In Britain, that's a black dog, but in Denmark, this is sometimes a sow, which is a rather unusual animal, perhaps, to be patrolling a churchyard. And if you met one, I think you would be suspicious that it was a supernatural being and not just an escaped pig.
Local people have taken it to their hearts. We've got a number of organisations that call themselves after the Black Dogs. We've got the Black Dog football team called the Black Dogs. We've got a Black Dog arts group. There's a Black Dog antique shop in the town. And funnily enough, the coat of arms for the town also has a black dog on it.
There are, let's say, energies. That's perhaps the kind of closest thing I would come to identifying, that make certain places feel strange. And then when people are spooked by those energies, then what they see, or they think they see, or they hear, or they think they hear is culturally formed by these stories and the beliefs that they know.
Do you believe?
Okay. She's right. She's right. Big example is, I've told the story about when I was walking on the trail at night. This, I don't know what it was, but it was an extremely just massive bird, winged creature that flew over my head. I've walked through this trail my whole life. This was probably about maybe 6 years ago, and it just had me in complete shock. Now, let's say I could have took that story and spun that and then before you know it, it's something else, and then so there's truth to that, but at the same time, diving a little bit deeper, when you see certain things that are, for example, matching up to other mythical creatures around the world, and then when you study even deeper and you see what, let's say, the Druids, or even before that, what the ancients were tapped into, and certain things and things they spoke about, you can't write everything off. You can't write everything off as just some type of paranoia or maybe an exaggeration, or just you just can't. And that's what the show Evil's about. Because, well, I'll explain a little after the video.
Even in the Black Dog as a being?
The stories come across as very realistic, so when I'm told the stories, I tend to think that it has been a real experience for the people involved, and what they're saying is what they actually experienced and witnessed.
Myth or not, the tales of Black Shuck have influenced generations and left a legacy and a legend burnt into English folklore.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so in the show Evil, right? I'm not gonna completely spoil it, but I'm gonna just say a quick scene. Um, there's this demon that shows up, right? And while this girl's like half asleep, or she's actually is asleep, but she's in that middle stage, right? So I would say she's kind of in the astral plane a little bit, right? She's in the astrals. So this demon like pees in the corner. So when I think it was her kids that woke her up, and when she looked, it was the window was open and rain was coming through and it was leaking. So what I'm saying is, the spirit. It seems like whatever's in the spirit influences the physical. So in a physical, it may play out as a door open, a window being open, but in spirit, I feel like that was really happening. And now I'm telling you, I go watch that show, Evil, and it pretty much breaks that down. It's like, and this woman's very logical. Then there's their other friend who's very logical and an expert at just pretty much debunking things. Then there's the priest who's like, believe, so he's not into the scientific and all that stuff. He's just into the straight spirit. So, oh man, if you into stuff like that, then you definitely will enjoy that show, Evil. It's pretty good. I actually have to finish that, but yeah, that pretty much to me explains like this. But like I said, I feel like obviously Hellhound. If you ever heard the stories of hellhounds, that's pretty much what this was, a hellhound. And also certain places could have more. Me personally, I would go to that specific village. I would find out the history of that village, like deep history of that village. Like was there any witches, what we call witches now, that may have been lynched, and burned, or was there, some type of magical activity? Was there certain groups of people in the past that may have came through that land and may have did something? Maybe some portals open there, or maybe somebody in spirit wants revenge, in the land may be cursed, or you get what I'm saying. So it's like I would have to do some serious deep diving into that, to the specific area, because specific areas have specific history. And you got to study deep into that to even get a basic understanding of why that may be happening, because that it ain't coming from nowhere. It ain't just happening for no reason. Then it's just like with the Amityville, and over in Long Island, Amityville, when that house where they was getting all them hauntings, it was said that was buried on top of like some type of Native American like burial land, something like that. So when you know what I'm saying? Like you gotta study the land. You gotta know the land, and before you even go and want to start building on that land, I think it's important as humans that we have a basic understanding of just the historical events that may have taken place on those lands. Simple. Because you don't want to. I put it like this: if a church right now, right? Because remember, the Vikings, they was bugging out. The Vikings, at least how they were portrayed, they was going in. If you see the show Vikings, they was going into churches and just straight robbing everything, killing everybody. So let's say you go and you move into a house and you build a town upon that. You don't even know. It's just hundreds of years later. Y'all just come through. Y'all just kind of clean it up, whatever. Don't really tell the other people that may move in, which I found, get rid of the bones, whatever, and y'all just build on there. And then people just start to see stuff and all this crazy stuff starts happening. You get what I'm saying? Like, they don't know the history that there might have been people slaughtered there and just tortured or something crazy. So that's important to study. But with that being said, hey, let me know if you've seen this. Let me know if you have some more knowledge on this. Original link in the description, and I'll be back with more soon. Happy spooky season, yeah?